Hey guys, what up, Viper here, and today I want to talk about a more advanced version of what you can do with the Arcanite package, which is just like a super consistent high DPS package, very strong late game when fights go very long and Bloom gets a lot of scaling in. And yeah, I want to essentially fix the early game that sometimes is a bit weak with, I don't know, just like the bulwarks and then one bird bonding on turn 2, and just have a stronger early game and have a stronger late game for somewhat of a sacrifice in the mid game, where you can, though, with a lot of positioning and smart things and threatening a lot of things, a lot of options to your opponent, kind of make up for it. So it's a bit more advanced, a bit more intermediate, a bit more difficult to play, but honestly, it's a lot more fun to play because there's way more stuff you can do, there's more stuff you can think about, and let's just get into it and talk about it and show you what I mean with this. So we are jumping into combining Arcanite and Mystic. Essentially, Mystic being super strong, especially late game trade, giving AoE shields and AoE attack speed buffs to everybody. Well, only every 10 seconds a shield will last for 5 seconds, so it's not all the uptime in the world, but it's good enough, especially in the beginning of the fight, so your Arcanite and Illuviums can get this first ability quicker than your opponent. Maybe Arcanites in the mirror can get their ability, and if you get your ability first, you activate Arcanite first, you get more attack speed, and you just start to snowball so much harder and faster and stronger. And it just feels really good when you get to that better late game state of the board. And on the other side though, the really cool thing is our early game on turn 1 and 2 is just way better as well. It's only, well, turn 3, 4, you kind of have to adjust, make some smart plays and so on. We'll get into that. So why do I think this is really cool and strong? Well, because my turn 1, Kadulu and Ripus is one of the strongest turns in the entire game. It's just the 2 toxic Illuviums, toxic being one of the best early game composites in the entire game. Very powerful turn, nothing new there. Now the turn 2 though. On turn 2 we can use a 10 cost staff on the Ranger, bond with the Greater Aphon for Mystic and Bloom. Oh, Bloom is going to be relevant later. And Aphon being an Earth Illuvium, Ripus being a Fighter Illuvium, we can add the 2 cheap Fighter Illuviums for exactly 200 mastery points. So turn 2 can be a Lesser Doka, a Aphon, a Mankia, Ripus, Kadulu, and the Ranger plus Bonding plus Mystic. So we have six things in play, 5 Illuviums plus Ranger. We have 3 Fighter, 3 Earth, Mystic shields, super tanky, super high damage of Toxic and Fighter. One of the most powerful turn 2s, maybe the most powerful turn 2 that you can have in the game, after one of the most powerful turn 1s in the game. So you're putting your opponent under an immense amount of pressure, you're taking away a lot of life points from them in the early game, which is very nice, due to later on you can just threaten positioning and side swaps and so on, and you just threaten to literally immediately kill them because they have lost so much life in the early rounds. Now, going from the super strong turn 2 to your turn 3. Turn 3 is still not weak. Turn 3 is just adding Flare and Stoic Emberlings to your board on like a standard kind of plays and lines, where you're just adding 3 Bulwark after you have the super damage heavy opening with a Fighter and Mystic and Toxic. You're adding more tankiness, very strong against most enemies. If it is against a Arcanite mirror with Bloom, your positioning really matters in terms of the where the enemy Phosphorus is angling the ability. If it is hitting only 1 or 2 of your guys, very good. You usually want to try to have the Emberlings in front of the Phosphorus, by the way, because the Emberlings can stun the Phosphorus, super high range on the stun. And then on turn 4, now we get into the a bit more intermediate ideas on how to play this and why I think it's not that easy, but really fun and rewarding. You can go and sell either the Doka or the Mankia, and then you put in Phosphorus and Fyrox both together at the same turn to activate Arcanite, activate Bloom, and activate the Fire synergy all together, and you just have a lot more damage, and you still maintain your tankiness from the Bulwarks and everything. You still have Toxic for debuffing enemies, and yeah, you just put in Arcanites plus Mystic at the same time, so they have this immediate attack speed buff and they activate their on Omega energy gain way quicker than whatever your opponent could be doing, and you're again just trying to deal a lot of damage, trying to overwhelm your opponent. And the combination of Mystic shields throughout the fight plus Bloom life gain and health regen increase over the fight, also very strong defensive tool. And yeah, from that setup overall, the next turn you can kind of think about selling the second Earth Fighter. You can put in Illuvium for the further Bloom. And in the later stages of the game, eventually you can sell your Ripterus when Toxic starts to not be super relevant anymore, when your opponent maybe has a bunch of Indomitable, cleanses, invulnerables, and all those kind of things. So Toxic doesn't accomplish a lot, and it doesn't hit enemies much, and your Toxic Illuviums die very quickly, right? All those things. You can swap out the Ripterus to an Adorius, and then you just have another really strong Mystic, really strong late game Illuvium in there. On that note, on the late game side of things, you are likely going to sell the A-Pawn to cleanse off your Ranger bonding, and maybe you replay the A-Pawn for the Mystic. Maybe you could also swap in a Ramphie every now and then to just surprise your opponent with a Rogue, maybe assassinate their carry if they are not positioning for it. But the standard line would be to just sell the A-Pawn and replay it, and you equip a Earth Gauntlet on your Ranger, because it is a super high damage dealing late game option to just have the Bloom Omega power scaling plus Gauntlet Omega power scaling and Arcane Sash on your Ranger, and extra attack speed from Mystic. So all of this comes together, and you just have super high damage dealing carries that are supported by Mystic, and Adorius, a strong late game unit with the healing. A-Pawn can be stunning rogues and such, very valuable as well. And outside of that, you just have the 3 good Bulwarks plus Lulura that are disrupting the enemy and holding the enemy team off, and we just combine that with standout things like Indomitable Augments. Now, I want to talk a bit about the addition of Ramphie. The Invoker matchup turned out to be a very difficult matchup, like for, I would say, most Arcanite teams. Therefore, having the one Ramphie as a second rogue to just threaten to kill the Invokers felt very strong. It's mainly there for that matchup, but if your opponents are not positioning around it, they put like a Fyrox in the back, unprotected, you can easily jump it with the Ramphie and kill it. And yeah, taking out Ripterus most of the time is your flex for that. So let's recap the playthrough on the strategy, because I think the augments are pretty much known. It's very much attack speed plus pure damage on Fyrox. It is very much 2 times lifesteal to nearest allies, prioritizing Phosphorus and Fyrox with those. Siphon Matrix usually on the Lura for more disruption. Your Phosphorus uses Safeguard, Modulator or Sequencer, 2 of these 3, depending if you want more defense or more offense. If your opponent plays a bunch of debuffs like Mud and Toxic, Cleanse is the option to go for, if not damage reduction. Usually almost always going physical and energy resistance here, and you're going Omega power gained on Omega on this. Again, if you want to know more about Phosphorus especially, and all the augments and angles and positionings about it, which is very relevant for this video, check out my video talking about Phosphorus specifically, all the intricacies, super deep dive, very valuable to know. Outside of that, biogenic, classic disruptive augments, very good against lifesteal teams, very good against Invoker teams, which again was like a pretty damn issue to beat with just like Arcanite fighter Mystic stuff. But yeah, Psion is supposed to beat fighters. We're playing a fighter opening, and Arcanite is semi-fighter, right? So Psion is supposed to beat us. That's why the counter augments and the counter Ramphie, and then the standard triple survival protocol, the best tank augment in the game for both options, both Indomitable and the shield, very valuable, depending on if the Illuvium is getting focused by the entire enemy team or just by a little bit. But yeah, summarizing the early game again, because I want to remember that, right? So turn 1, Kadulu Ripterus. Turn 2, you go A-Pawn, you bond the A-Pawn with the staff, and you go Earth Doka and Lesser Monk here. You have 2 Toxic, 3 Fighter, 3 Earth, 2 Mystic. Pretty much the strongest turn 2 that you can have in the game. And then turn 3, you can add in Flare and the Stoic Emberlings to that. So yeah, looking at the positioning of these early rounds, it's like I mentioned before, Kadulu usually just like in the middle. It's totally fine to be there, especially for setting up your later stages. Ripterus, it can be pretty much here in the back. You can also put it slightly here, but here is a nice spot, because then you can put a Fyrox next to it, and it's not that easy for the Fyrox to be jumped by rogues. And then talking about the Earth guys, Mankya has slightly lower movement speed than Doka, and Mankya is also more or less the higher valued thing. So you want Mankya to walk up here, Doka to walk up here. And if your tank dies, the enemies might refocus first on the Doka and last on the Mankya. So that's why you want them to be like this. And if the other guy is also playing melee damage dealers, you always want the enemy melee damage dealers to walk up first. They start hitting your bulwarks, and then your guys come in and they sweep and attack the other melee damage dealer and not the bulwark. And then A-Pawn kind of wants to be somewhat in the front line-ish, so it can buff your team and stun the enemy team. You don't really want it to be focused by too many enemies, so this depends on the matchup. And then your Staff Ranger, usually on the side here where I can like AoE shield and help out a lot. Very, very good. And then talking about the bulwarks, depending on the space and what the enemy is running, either left or right, exchangeable. But yeah, this is what you would usually be going for in the earlier stages on the positioning. So don't be afraid of swapping out Illuviums in general, right? Usually you're gonna swap out a Doka or a Monkey on turn 4 for the double Arcanite. On turn 5 you're gonna swap out the second one for the Lolura as like a standard thing. And maybe on turn 6 already you're gonna swap out the Riptorus for the Adorius, additional Mystic, additional healing, additional just very, very valuable late game Illuvium basically. So that is the cool part of this this team, where you're swapping out things, which is also adjusting positioning, makes it very hard for your opponent to play into and to predict a lot of the things that you're doing. So let's jump into a game and just show how it's all done. Alright, we found ourselves a game. It is against Patard, and Patard is playing Invoker. I think this is probably the hardest matchup we have, and it is a very non-standard matchup, so let's see how it's gonna go. These augments are pretty unfavorable for me as well. Damn, this is not a good start into this game. Because, okay, honestly, the Rogue Imprint is very, very good for me. Maybe I should double bet that even. Never mind, the Rogue Imprint is very good for me. These two obviously incredibly powerful augments for Invokers. Giving them to my opponent, very, 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 very scary. But I think the Rogue Imprint is just mainly my win condition, so I want to bet 2 on it. I assume my opponent is gonna 1-bet the Rogue Imprint. Oh, 0-bet it? Okay. Well... Reactive Transference turns Umbra into a scary unit to face. So I am a bit worried here now. Some camera mode switches for fun. No. Yeah, we certainly want to deal max damage on turn 1. So certainly... this is probably like the only matchup where I'm not really positioning Riptorus in the back. Because if I position Riptorus in the back, they will all focus Kadulu and they will kill Kadulu. Therefore, we want to split... We want to split up our opponent's damage output here a bit. A Ranger dying is completely irrelevant, because the Ranger doesn't actually deal any health damage to my opponent. Both of my Illuviums surviving and dealing the full 165 damage that I can deal on turn 1. That is the very relevant part here. So yeah, my Ranger tanking this, Kadulu tanking this, Groko tanking this. That is very ideal. It should lead to all of my Illuviums surviving and us dealing max damage here. That is the main important thing versus the Invoker team, because late game they are very, very hard to deal with. Like in general for any team ever, and especially for a non-rogue heavy team. So now we can already question if we might deviate on turn 2 in this matchup, honestly. Because fighters are fundamentally a bit weak to Psion, therefore it would make sense to think about deviating slightly. I don't think we will do that though. I think we just do a powerful turn 2. We just get the fighters, get the Mystic in, and we just have to try and position very smart so that the dual left beam is maybe not hitting as much of my team. I would say we try to like have dual left, maybe beam these things, and then just beam the ground afterwards. Having my Ranger here would have been really good, because now dual left is still gonna hit multiple targets. But that is like a 50-50, right? That is like a dual left or right, and I didn't wanna 50-50 this right here. I think it's still looking fine. This dual left beam is very scary if it kills both of my guys here. It did kill both of my guys. Oh, it did not. So this is a cool interaction in the game. I'm not really happy that it is the way it is, but it helped me right now. where a ability that taunts enemies means it forces the enemy to stop whatever they are doing, like casting a dual left beam, and start auto-attacking the target. So it is very, very disruptive for that. Now, usually we would be playing Bulwarks here, but my opponent is playing a scaling Invoker damaged comp. Therefore, going for Bulwarks here is very low impact, honestly. And I believe we much rather want to play for Rogues. Now, we could consider putting a Rogue emblem on Ripterus here and making a Rogue Ripterus. We could consider making a Rogue Phosphorus this turn. I don't think Rogue Phosphorus is that amazing right now. I think we want to have that option for later. Like in general, we want to have the Rogue emblem option for later. So I'm really thinking of just Ramfi Lolura here. And yeah. We put our Ranger here so the Ranger can tank the dual left beam preferably. And we hope that Ramfi and Lolura can kill the Grocko and then quickly move on to the dual left. Now the Ranger being still in the middle means that the Ranger's gonna tank some. It's not bad, it's not fine. Our Ramfi AoE can probably finish them off. And you can see Ramfi did a whole lot of damage. And yeah, looks very good. And the main objective of turn 1 to 3 is putting Invoker at a low health total. Now 430 is not that low, 430 can be 2 lives. So that is a bit scary, I would have preferred that to be a lot lower. Final Bounding is very strong on Umbra, and my opponent already got a different legendary augment that is very strong on Umbra, so this is a bit scary. Vampiric Price is not as good into Invoker matchup as most of the other things. I think I'm not that scared of Final Bounding. I think I'm more scared of a Vampiric Price or a Visionary Vanguard Umbra. My opponent gets Final Bounding, it is what it is, we can live with it. Okay, my opponent really highly values that, that's interesting. Really lowly values Visionary Vanguard. Okay. Visionary Vanguard is very good for me because it's just a very good rogue augment essentially. And yeah, rogue augments, obviously rogues being like my win condition in this matchup should be strong. Now, this is a turn where my opponent can just go Sinnoh and Stoic Waterlings for 5 water and 5 Bulwark. I would say that is the usual play. So maybe this really is, we just try to predict our opponent's positioning and we send in the Visionary Vanguard and Rogue Emblem Phosphorus here, hoping that it can accomplish a lot. Sending it in on this side because, well, worst case, there's nothing here, maybe it attacks this and the ability can snipe into this corner. Best case, there's a Sinnoh positioned here and we can quickly kill the Sinnoh. Oh, there's a Sinnoh. Let's see if we can just quickly kill that. That would be appreciated. Well, this is awkward. The Kadulu taunted my Phosphorus away right before killing the Sinnoh. So the Sinnoh is... what is the Sinnoh actually doing? Well, that is unfortunate. I think this was a positioning error by me, and I should not have positioned my bird on this angle. I should have positioned my bird in the middle, actually. This is... yeah, I didn't realize that the Kara Blue with 5 water could cast the ability fast enough to protect the Sinnoh. That is a bit awkward. We could counter with energy, minus energy here. I think a Quantum Reclamation on Ramfi makes a lot of sense. Repositioning my bird also makes a lot of sense, like that was just poor position last fight. And after that, I don't have Arcanite active, which is very awkward, honestly. So we should likely fix that. Put in Arcanite. I think my Fyrox is just another bait for the ranged guys. I don't think my Fyrox will actually accomplish a lot in these fights. Give a small Indomitable to Ramphy and we give some life steal to our bird here. I think that is the best that I can do. Now this Phosphorus is very, very scary, but I am killing the Ranger here very quickly, hopefully. That is so unfortunate. That is so unfortunate. If that Ranger would have died there, we might have had a good chance, but yeah. As like I said, the matchup is very difficult. Turn 4 onwards. Really, really hard to deal with. But we can try putting in some more frontline. Maybe that can be useful. And we can start putting in more Indomitable Augments, as those can maybe also help turn the tide. I don't think my opponent will actually move, so maybe I should keep my Ramphy over there. We just default to less energy augments. And we adjust Lulura slightly. I think that's the best we can do this turn. Oh, this is really awkward. My Phosphorus is in a strong position now though. And my Ramphy didn't double cast the ability into nothing. So maybe we do have a chance here. If this Phosphorus... That's a very, very close one. Okay. Whew. I would say this is certainly where we switch the Mystic bonding. And I add another carry. Could certainly argue of trying to play for a stronger Fyrox here as well. I don't think I like that though. I think we are still essentially playing for like sacrificing this. I'm just also using Indomitable Augments. Adorius could be useful, but I think it's worse than just putting in extra augments. The question now is if we can adjust some more positioning. I don't really think we can. We could adjust the Phosphorus. It is getting attack speed slowed there. I think could adjust it over here. Opponent full swapping side. It's mainly awkward. It's not even that awkward because my Ranger has a really good angle into this. Now you see, my Ranger ability can maybe really do a lot of work here, and so does my Phosphorus. Oh, we win a fight, but we didn't win the game, so that's a bit awkward again. But my Ranger definitely could do a lot of work there. I don't know, it's a bit hard to commentate on a lot what is happening here, because this is a very different matchup than almost anything else you would like be playing or facing or similar. So yeah. I think at this point I almost wanna like swap off the Rogue emblem from my Phosphorus, because it is just so expected and all these Siphon Matrixes and everything is playing around it so much. Yeah, I also have just lots of points to spend. I think we could also just be adjusting Fyrox augments now though. Could just be positioning a middle Fireworks. And we use this to give lifesteal. None of these do a whole lot. Could be thinking of putting a Indomitable Augment on Phosphorus. That would be very strong. Or just damage reduction. So the main goal here is that Phosphorus does not get attack speed slowed at the beginning of the fight, which it did not, so that is huge. Now our Ramphie did a good job here, if it can finish off the Synarth. My Phosphorus is alive, it is kicking, and is very, very strong into the backline door. My Ranger just assassinated our Dualef, the enemy's Dualef. Okay, well. I think... incredibly difficult matchup, 5 HP left. I would say probably really well played on both sides, very, very close game. 5 HP left, obviously very close game, but I hope this was an interesting showcase. Let me know if I should play some more standout matchups, maybe get somebody to play specific matchups that you face, like Mat or Arcanite matchups or similar. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this, if this was helpful, if this was like a super stressful game. It kind of was for me. I was really not sure what's gonna happen. A lot of crazy positioning moves by my opponent, a lot of legendary augments in both sides here. Very, very different game. But I think we showcased the flexibility of opening very strong into then just like, well, at some point, we probably just gained most of the advantage to win out in these rounds because my opponent was adjusting positioning in these 3 rounds a lot due to just the fact that we had the rogues, we had the Ramphie in there, and I still managed to survive in those 3 rounds. The last one was definitely very close, but there were also some rounds that could have just gone slightly better for me, right? So I think this is it's very possible that sometimes on turn 6, maybe you... like these 3 rounds, if you survive these 3 rounds or you just win one of them, you probably win the game. Because I think later on it's very difficult to play around everything that you can do, even for Invokers. But, no, there's no but. There's no but. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this was really interesting and gave you a good intel into a different and probably at least as strong version of the Arcanite team, maybe stronger if you play it to perfection, but playing it to perfection, swapping in and out Rogue, swapping in and out Mystic, changing Ranger bondings, certainly more difficult than just the standard one, but I think it is way more fun to play this. Appreciate everybody watching all the videos and see you guys in the next one.